Terrific day, world. Hopefully everybody's super great and getting better. Welcome to the show, the Corey Webster Experience. I am C. Webb, Corey Webster, your host, and we back like we never left. NBA is underway. We got some sweeps. Somebody done broke out the broom. Some people are going on vacation. The whole NFL draft and the slippage of Shedeur Sanders. We're going to chat about that. And then we're also going to talk about, I guess, proximity of place, homegrown, our roots, and how, being from a place doesn't have to define who we are or it doesn't put a ceiling on what we can achieve. So lock in. Let's go. We have to also say, some things that have shifted around and then happen in the world, right? I recently celebrate 11 years of marriage. I think we need to get the little button I can press where I do my own applaud. It's been a journey. It's been a great journey. It's been, a wonderful time being able to embrace what a partnership looks like and, defining that amongst, my family and amongst ourselves. I always tell people two is only better than one when two can operate as one. So however that, selflessly, however that works for you guys, you know what I mean? Kudos to you guys. Hopefully everybody can continue to make that decision. Remember, love is a decision over and over again to continue to love one another. I think somebody had a shirt that says, love me perfectly imperfect. Something like that, you know what I mean? Just means that, we are not perfect human beings, but we can be human beings that love perfectly and enjoy those mistakes, enjoy the imperfection of one another, and embrace the newness and the changes that we make because we should be constantly striving to be a better version of ourselves. So with that being said, let's hop into some NBA playoff standings. Did you have anything in mind when it comes to the Cleveland Cavaliers sweeping the Miami Heat? I think Pat Riley I know he's been at this a long time. He's been successful a long time, but sometimes those individuals can, really take this hard because they're not used to this situation that they're in. The whole back and forth this year with Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler leaves, goes to Golden State Warriors. Golden State Warriors defense and team just picks up. So the same time when Miami is getting swept by the Cavaliers, Jimmy Butler and the Golden State Warriors are going up in the series 3-1 over Houston's. And you can't tell me that you didn't see that, you know what I mean? So I think Pat Riley's over like what's next, you know what I mean? So, but I think Cleveland did what they were supposed to do. What I mean by that is they was dominant all season long, all regular season. They came into the Eastern Conference as the highest seeded team, and they did what they were supposed to do. They protected home court, and they also got, the win 4 games, so they get to get some rest, get to work on those little knick-knack injuries, and continue to progress to see how far they can go. I told y'all the most interesting game is if Cleveland makes it to the championship and OKC. And with that being said, OKC did what they were supposed to do on their side of the bracket. They swept the Memphis Grizzlies. It was a point there where I was like, I don't think Memphis have enough. They was competing and they came back out and they, was down and, came back and got the lead to a 6, but I just say that they didn't have enough. And then with Jai not being able to be a healthy Jai and, lead, they just, fell short. So they got swept as well. So those teams are going to be going on vacation soon or have already made their arrangement. They're shipping their cars back to their hometown where they, work on their game or whatever like that. So, those two teams that took care of business. Now, Boston Celtics, Orlando Magic. The series is tied at 2-2. I think Boston, they don't have any major injuries, but they have a few nagging injuries. A wrist with Jason Tatum, a sore knee with Jaylen Brown. And I don't know how that will affect them going forward. You know what I mean? They're not getting the rest that they need. What I mean by need. When you have injuries, you want to get this series behind. You don't want to go into a 6-7 game series when you want players to get healthy, especially if the other teams are getting healthy, inside of the playoff or having rest time in the playoffs. So that's going to be interesting to see how fast they can close this game out. Does it take, 7 games, or can they get it done in 6? That's going to be an interesting thing. And will any other player miss any significant time? When I say significant time, 1 game is significant in the playoffs. You got to first to 4. So 1 game is significant. I think Detroit, I think New York has put themselves in position to get this game over in 5 games. Now, only time I'm going to say, can they get it done? But, man, I know this may be a little far to look back, but can you believe that Dallas Mavericks got rid of Jalen Brunson? Can you believe that Dallas got rid of Luka? You know what I mean? If I would have told you that Jalen Brunson was going to be this, because he showed this type of potential in Dallas. We had a chance to go see him when Luka was out. He showed this type of potential, and Dallas couldn't sign him back, or they didn't sign him back for whatever the reason was. And now, there's the Knicks is sitting at 3-1 and looking to close out the series on Detroit Pistons. Indiana has put themselves in great position too. Unfortunately, the Bucks will not be with Dame Lillard. You know what I mean? Damian Lillard suffered a torn Achilles. So, man, our prayers and our thoughts are with you and your family, your teammates. I saw when he went down, he just sat there. It looked a bit like, oh, he knew. You know what I mean? And then the reports came back, said that he suffered a torn Achilles. So it's going to be interesting to see. I know this early, and we're still in the playoff, but can Giannis be Superman and get it done over the Indiana Pacers? Or I think, will the Indiana Pacers be a little too much for him? I think they're going to be too much for him. I think maybe they get 1 more win. Maybe 6 games. But it's not looking, very bright for the Milwaukee Bucks. And what I think is, I think people are going to come calling for Giannis. I think potential people that can call for him is Pat Riley and the Miami Heat. That's going to be interesting because Jimmy Butler wanted Damian Lillard out there, or another star out there, and he didn't get it, right? When Damian Lillard went to Milwaukee. And that'll be interesting to see. Damian Lillard came over there to partner with Giannis if he take his talent to South Beach or to another team. Can you see Giannis partnering with maybe a Luka in LA? That'd be crazy. That'd be crazy. But neither here nor there, Western Conference. I think OKC did what they were supposed to, like we talked about over the Memphis Grizzlies. Houston Rockets, I think they let a game slip away from them. They're now trailing the Golden State Warriors 3-1. Put themselves in a bad position in the playoff. It was a very young team that's, maybe show a little bit of the inexperience in this playoff right here. But they did a great job in the regular season. This shows you that the regular season and the playoffs are 2 different things. Now they find themselves trailing 3-1. And with that being said, did anybody see Jalen Green? Because he's been kind of MIA this playoffs, especially when they needed him. I know it's a young team. Look, young guys, when all else fails, stay focused and stay the course. What I mean by that, I see these young guys getting into it with Draymond Green. Remember, he's experienced. You know what I mean? Stay away from it. Stay focused. I see even my LSU guy, Easton, got to stay away from it. Don't fall victim of those tactics or those tactics that he like to do. And look, I'm not talking bad about Draymond. That's smart, right? Dylan Brooks. Hey, I like Dylan Brooks, the type of guy that you pick him first because you don't want to play against him. You get him on your team. But he also can ignite and poke the bear. You got to remember when to poke, when not to poke. Because at the free throw line, when you and Jimmy Butler got face to face, Jimmy was like, I don't like that guy. He told you how he feel. And you couldn't match his level of intensity, or you couldn't get your team going. So sometimes you got to just, know when to hold him, know when to fold him. I think, Jimmy was content with, I'm out here, I'm playing injured. Just let me stay out the way. But I think you decided to start poking and talking to him, and that kind of lit a fire under Jimmy. And then he, I think, finished the game with the second highest points. Went like 12 for 12 from the free throw line. Playoff Jimmy is a thing. I know he don't, want to, talk about it, but the numbers and, what's been happening is a thing. So know when to poke a bear and know who you are. Know who you are for a team. And that doesn't take nothing away from your game or nothing like that, but you have to understand when to do it, when not to do it. When I'm giving the other team motivation and when I'm helping my team be motivated that's a fine line. I'll say this, I remember when, and we thought nothing of it. I remember when Plexico Burress said that he predicted a score in Super Bowl 42. He was like, hey, we're going to beat them 21-17. You got to understand who Plexico Burress is to our team. And not that he was always, a vocal leader, but he's a leader, he's an influencer. Everybody respect him in the locker room. You got to understand that. You know what I mean? So when he said that, and their leader laughed at it, Tom Brady was like, all we're going to do is go 17 points. He didn't understand how that lit a fire in us. Not just because Tom Brady said nah, but because of how we had Plexico Burress back and how we had each other's back in that locker room all year long. So with that being said, we had to give Plex a little pushback because we're like, man, how you going to give them the goal? Our goal is to hold people underneath 17 points. If you give them the goal, Plex, that means the defense didn't do their job. So we had to go out there and show Plex a little bit too, that we can hold them under 17 points. And I think we got the W. What the score was? I think they only scored 14 that game. Do your fact checks. I don't know. You know what I mean? But anyway, Dylan Brooks, you got to know who you are. So I think you poked the bear, and playoff Jimmy came and put the cape on and got it done. So, hey, I think it's borrowed time that Houston is on right now. Can Golden State get it done in 5? I think that'll be the best thing, because if they get it done in 5, they get to get some much needed rest. Jimmy get to get some rest. And like I tell you right now, all players are, playing injured or bruised or bumped right now. Not injured, hurting, I would say. If you're injured, you're not playing. But if you're hurting, all players are playing hurt, bumped, bruised. It's a long season. I always tell you, basketball is a contact sport. So it gives those guys some much needed rest so they can, maybe go a little further in the playoff. Lakers, Minnesota. I told you, Minnesota was gelling together at the right time. And I said that the Lakers were in trouble. Did I not? I'm not going to lie to you. And I still feel that way. I didn't see any changes that the Lakers needed to make after the win that they got. I saw it. They got the W, but I'm like, you cannot continue to win by ISO and Gobert. It has to be another system, another way. Some other players have to show up. And I started seeing LeBron stay out there a long time. Not that he didn't need to, but they didn't have confidence in the bench. And I think the bench only scored 6 points the last game. It's going to be hard for you to win any game or series with you not having the bench show up. And I think we're seeing a little bit. I know I talked about AR being, one of the best third options in the league. Well, Minnesota is saying, hey, regular season is different than playoff season. And we about to be all over the court, locking that up, playing defense. Them young boys play defense over there. They challenge, they competing. And he's not having the success that he had in the regular season. And the bench is nowhere to be found. I know coaches down there looking at the bench like, who can I put in? And they jogging their head together and coming up with Brian playing 38 plus minutes and looking like he's taking breaks out there on the court, and that's not going to be successful basketball. So was shaping out to be probably the best series is Denver Nuggets, LA Clippers. I would say this. LA Clippers may have missed opportunity, a golden opportunity of getting that Game 4 win. One block out away from being up 3-1. These are like, you know when coach say attention to details and that a play can come back to hurt you later on, kids, and why we want you to, practice good habits and always do the little things right? This is why. Because you could easily be up 3-1 if somebody put a body on Gordon. You could be up 3-1 and you'd be in much better position to win this series right here. Right now it's knotted up. So it's back to even. No home field. All that's even now. You know what I mean? You didn't steal home court advantage. They did what they were supposed to do. You did what you're supposed to do. Right? Now we're going back, traveling. So who do I think that is going to come out of blazing? I think the star is going to come out of blazing. I think Joker going to come out with a sense of urgency. I think Kawhi is going to come out with a sense of urgency. I think Harden, Jamal Murray. I think it's going to be the role players that step up in this game right here. And for the rest of this series, that's going to be who's going to win this series. But I said this was going to be the best series. And, you got the top performers, man. Giannis is doing his thing. Tyrese Halliburton is doing his thing. He kind of disappeared in the points box, a game. But for the most part, assists also leads to points. So averaging 12 plus assists a game, that's awesome. Donovan Mitchell, I think he scored like 29, 22 points in game 3 and 4, respectively, to, that's what his team needed to get him to sweep so he get some rest. Anthony Edwards, man, he's being very instrumental in, leading his team to a 3-1 over the Lakers. And another guy that's, turning back the time, vintage Kawhi Leonard. It looked like the guy been playing all season well. I don't know what type of, rehab, what type of workouts he was doing in the off season or during the season to get himself here, because he don't look like he rusty at all. Look like he's in rare form, like he got what we would call fresh legs, you know what I mean? So people that may be underperforming, I think Luka, you know what I mean? I think Luka is one of the underperformers. Luka gonna have to learn how to play defense. He gonna have to get his body in shape so he can get up and down the court and he can play significant time, man. Look like Luka would rather argue with the official while offense is going on or while defense is going on his side, you know what I mean? He'll throw a ball away and be like, man, get back, man. You know what I mean? You have never saw a referee stop the game in there and say, you know what, you're right. Let me give you. No, they're playing 4 against 5 because you're not getting back and you're rather talking to the officials. So he's going to have to get himself in shape. I know you talk about a stomach bug. I don't know. I don't know if it's a stomach bug or just not being in shape, you know what I mean? To have that stomach, them cramps that come in your stomach when you drink too much sodas or anything like that. When you're a kid, you don't know what that cramp is, and you get to a program that runs a lot, you'd be like, oh, coach, something is, yeah. I think Luka had that kind of stomach bug. So, again, we talked about Damian Lillard suffering a torn Achilles tendon, and hope that he can have a speedy recovery and that he can, have the mental fortitude and have the support mentally to get him through this. You know what I mean? You hate to see a player go down, any player. You know what I mean? He's a top 75 player, but you hate to see any player go down. So, again, our thoughts and prayers are with him. Moving. Any questions? I know you always got a few questions for me. I don't know if you got one or two about your NFL or NBA. I'm sorry.
Yes. One question. Can the Bucks remain competitive without Damian Lillard?
I think initially, the brotherhood guys, gonna want to step up and, play for their brother. But I just think that throughout the duration of it, it's not going to be enough. You prepare to go to, through these games and through the season with your, the guys that's been working with you. And he's one of those guys. He's not there. So you depend on him in a way. And, Doesn't matter how many people step up collectively. I think in a playoff series like this, Indiana is going to be a bit too much for them because they got all of their pieces there. And again, they don't. They're missing one of their main pieces. So I think, initially they're going to be playing for him, but I just think that it's going to be too much for them to, that void is going to be too big for them to make up for.
Okay. One more question. Can the Warriors close out the Rockets to advance?
I think they can. I think they're going to come in with a sense of urgency. I think they're going to make some changes, some adjustments. I think those adjustments are going to have to be playing some different players. I think they have a Jonathan Kuminga that's going to have to play. He has some DNPs. You know what DNP mean? For everybody out there, DNP, when they got it next to your name, did not play. So he got a couple of those by his name. I think he's going to have to play. They played, they went deep into their bench. Draymond got in some foul trouble early on, so they had to go deep into their bench. But I think they're going to have to do some, different things in order to keep Houston All-Star, at bay a little bit. And they could close out, Game 5. I think that's what they need to do in order to get some rest going forward. Just a couple of days of rest, you know what I mean? One day extra rest can do a lot for a series, you know what I mean? And I don't want to say this, but the Warriors are not a young team like the Houston Rockets are, you know what I mean? So, one day of rest for those guys, much needed rest, can do them wonders.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
Shifting to some NFL highlights and facts. The whole talk about Shedeur Sanders and him slipping from, being one of the top picks in the draft to being a 5th round pick in the draft, and everybody's trying to figure out how and what happened. I don't have that answer. I think time is going to reveal that answer. I can say this. They talked about, Shedeur being a guy that, some interviews went bad. I think all of those individuals, not just because of Shedeur, I've always been this way. I think great journalism is about putting a tag on being able to cite your work. Like, where did those questions come from? Where did you hear this from? Guys always got sources. So I don't like the sources thing. Like, who said these things? Who did he have a bad interview with? What team did he sit down with and he just bombshelled the interview? Because I've heard and been in some situation where guys has had some crazy interviews, dealing with all kind of things, and they still get drafted, no problem. I can say, I won't say I know anyone personally. I would say that my oldest son went to school with Shedeur, and I ain't hear nothing crazy about him at school, than him being a student and him being a kid and being respectful and, going to school, getting his work, just like any other student athlete would do. I've never heard that he was disrespectful. I never saw him because I see him in the basketball gym. I see him at practice. I see him, whether, interacting at the school events and things like that. And I've never saw that. So, and he's lived most of his life in the spotlight. So if anybody had anything on him, it would be out. People would be the first to report that Shedeur Sanders is arrogant. Shedeur Sanders is this, but you're not going to tell me that the very thing that got most of these guys where they are, their confidence, is a problem in sports now. Like, that's what every guy has confidence. I recently was told by one of our family members that, man, your daddy was cocky. And I never in my million years thought that I was cocky. I thought I was confident, but it can be perceived as whatever is perceived. And I'm not mad at those individuals that perceive me as being cocky. I know what it is. And I'm confident in the work that I put into this. You know what I mean? But I do understand this too, that some larger than life personalities may not fit in every locker room. Now, if you're telling me that those interviews reveal that to you, or if I'm giving you this now because you never thought of it, we have heard that, Some, they call some receivers divas. I'm sorry, receivers. They call y'all divas. I don't know why. It's not my name. I'm just, it's not me. I was a receiver once. But they talked about, man, you don't want that guy in your locker room because he can be a cancer to your locker room. Not that he's not a good player. Not that he can't help your team win. But because his personality can influence others in a way that may be detrimental to the team, right? And I've never heard that about Shedeur. This is just things that I know that happens in, National Football League and amongst teams, right? So I can't say why he slipped. I can't say why, 32 team would pass him up in the first round, second round, 2 or 3 times. But I could say that he's been drafted to the Cleveland Browns. He has the opportunity to prove himself. I think this also add fuel to the fire, that he should be motivated. I don't see this. Why would 32 teams want to humble a guy that has never been in trouble? Humble him for being successful? Humble him because his mom and dad genes came together to produce him and they were who they were, because his dad had a successful football career or successful, career in whatever it is. We're going to humble him because of that. I don't see, the world is going to be a crazy place if, your parents can't be successful and they can't help or, breathe life into you and you be successful as well. And that's cool. I don't understand that. You know what I mean? So I also think that, this can't be, I would say it's a politics thing in sports, but we can't say, oh, it's a black and white thing because the number 1 pick was a black guy. You know what I mean? Cam Ward. And Shedeur is a black guy that slipped. So, I don't see that angle as well. You know what I mean? But it's politics in everything that we do. You know what I mean? We can't escape politics. Politics is in everything. It's in our schools. It's in our middle schools, high school, elementary schools, colleges. It's in everything that we do. You know what I mean? It's in where we stay, in our banking. So we can't escape that. But, I think time going to reveal and show, true character. I think I like with, they had the whole prank call by defensive coordinator for the Atlanta Falcons. His son prank call. I just like that. Shedeur, that's a guy that I know. He accepted his call. He accepted the apology. He didn't have to do that. This guy don't mean nothing to him or the Atlanta Falcons. He don't need those ties. But I just think that shows the type of person that he is. He's built, his dad been, a Christian, always talked about how the values that they, put in their kids as far as, keeping God first and foremost. So to me, that shows that character in that guy. And not just because of that one thing that he did. That's what I've always seen in him, just being around him from a distance, so to speak, because, we shared high schools as a parent with their family. So I ain't gonna overtalk it. I'm gonna let the time do its thing, you know what I mean, before we speak on things. I like to be accurate on it, but that's my perspective on it thus far. Some surprise in the draft, Jaguars, moving up to select Travis Hunter. I think that's a surprise, but I also think it's a young guy that's a general manager over there now, and he's trying to send a message out to the NFL, and not just to the NFL, but to his organization that he's serious about changing his culture. Now that's just 1 pick, and it's just 1 draft, so it'll be interesting to see how that works going forward because, changing the culture, you have to really know what you're doing to change the culture. And I'm not saying he can't do it, but it's a lot of variables that come with that, and it's a lot of key players, influences that you need to do that. But I think that's what this move was right here for him. It was a clear message to say, hey, look, we're serious about not only, changing the culture, but the guy, Travis Hunter, he embodies that. You know what I mean? He's a guy that is what some would call, a unicorn, right? Plays both sides of the ball, which, I don't want to use that word unicorn, but he's special, right? And he's willing to challenge the boundaries that has been set for athletes. Some athletes, they want to be, all right, they put him in a position to pick a position. They do that. He's pushing those boundaries. So I think that's what he does for that organization. We want to be edgy. We want to push the boundaries right now. We want to change this culture. This is a guy that represents that. And not only for, the Jacksonville Jaguars on the field, but also for the Jacksonville Jaguars off the field. So that'll be, my surprise pick for the draft and that move that they made. Any other thing, but, shout out my guy Campbell from LSU, offensive tackle that got drafted to the New England Patriots. Other than that, man, the draft was just regular degular. You know what I mean? I also thought that Jalen Milroe was always the steal of the draft. I think that he didn't get a fair shake. And when I mean fair shake, it happens, you know what I mean? But when Coach Saban decided to leave, he had, 1 year there left. I think he would have loved to do that year under Coach Saban and the development that they had going. He had to go and transition to a new regime. And, he had to embrace that newness. And I think that's why it wasn't certain that he was a top pick. But I think he can also go ahead and be like one of his fellow Alabama members, Jalen Hurts. I think he has that potential. I think he has that skill level. I just think it's going to take some development, and hopefully Seattle Seahawks and him can get it done.
Yep, and also congratulations to Vashrion.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Jones.
Yes, Savion. Yes, sorry, Savion. Yes, I'm tripping. Not only Vashrion, St. James on by way of LSU Baton Rouge, and he got drafted this year.
Awesome.
Yep. Shout out to you, Savion. I'm sorry, man. Great job, man. You're making Vashrion look good. And he also graduated.
Mm-hmm.
What you got from him?
That's it.
We talked about, I saw, you sent me a message about, and I guess it's kind of tied into athletes too as well, you know what I mean? But athletes, entertainers, or just people in general being from their neighborhood, but I guess it's that thin line. Like how can you balance being from the neighborhood but not often defined by the neighborhood? And, this individual was talking about the black culture, how we have made struggle look great. Like to the point where we embodied struggle so much. And it's okay to embrace what you're going through and embrace, the newness and the uncertainty. But we have embodied struggle so much that we have individuals that made it out and would still act and portray the image of where they came from. They can't, Eli would call it, they can't turn the page, so to speak. And I think that's an issue in our community, in our culture. Because some will make you feel like you are, I guess, turning your back on the neighborhood because you have grown and evolved in a way. And that's a balance that the individual have to do. Some people may even call that survivor's remorse, being able to balance that. And I don't know, you know what I mean? To a point, as an individual, you have to understand that it's okay to grow. It's okay to be rooted where you're from, but not be stuck where you're from. Because it's another person that looks just like you that's going through similar stuff, because proximity to a place that you're going to inspire just from doing the right things, or, you being a person that came from here. And, I mean, you just call out Savion Jones. So for me, it was important to not only talk about the example, but be the example of what we're talking about. I see Savion Jones when I go back to my neighborhood. I've seen him there. Other kids too as well. I'm not where I'm, what some would call untouchable. No, I want to be interacting with the neighborhood, but that don't mean I have to interact and continue to push the neighborhood lessons that I've learned. It's okay to learn those lessons, what to do, what not to do. But as you grow and as you evolve, you have to demonstrate the lessons and be an example of them, if that makes sense. So that's what I would tell any kid or anything like that. But go ahead, shoot your shot. You had questions?
Yes. Why did Shedeur Sanders fall 5th round despite his high projections?
We went back. You went to the wrong questions right there. We already went to the NFL. You was on the question that you was talking about the growing and being from the hood and the neighborhood. I mean, I say hood.
Okay. Look, I was sleeping on you.
Yeah, see, everybody got to get up. It's time. It's work time.
Okay. So, can I grow beyond my surroundings without looking like I'm turning my back on them?
Most definitely. I've been in seminars and I use this. I don't know where I picked it up from. $100 bill. You remember the old $100 bill, what people would call a small face? Mm-hmm. It evolved over time, and it evolved from, the $100 bill that just had the little line in it and a couple of security options in it to one now that has over, I don't know exact number, but 20 something plus security things in it. You know what I mean? To where it's harder to counterfeit it. I never tried, but that $100 bill is still worth $100. So it's possible to grow and evolve and change over time, but still remain 100. You know what I mean? So yes, you can definitely grow beyond your surroundings without feeling like you turn your back on them. But that doesn't mean that other individuals won't feel like you're being disloyal to them. These are meaningful things that people are going to say once you start evolving and you turn from some of your old habits, right? People that are like-minded, they're going to be your accountability partner to continue to do the path that you're on. The test come when other people doesn't respect your growth and you're not aware enough to put boundaries in place for those individuals. So they're going to say, hey, man, you didn't graduate from college. You think you better than us. You have to understand that may be an individual. I don't have to be negative to that individual, but I heard what that individual said, and that may be a new boundary that I need to set for that individual. Because I don't want individuals around me that is going to challenge me in places where it's not going to be beneficial and add value to me. It's okay to challenge me as my accountability partner and say, hey, man, did you work out this morning? And I'm like, oh, no, man, I forgot. Hey, man, you need to go get your workout in. But it's not okay to get challenged from an individual that's trying to pull you back down where you once came from, and you not put a boundary in place for that individual. So I hope that answered your question.
Yes, it did. And I have one more question for you. Is it possible to learn from the pain around me without repeating it?
Most definitely, because I always say I'm an observant podcaster. But that observation just didn't come from me doing podcasts. It came from me my whole life. I would say the best way to learn is from observing. Because if I don't have to go through it and I can save myself some hard time or some things you got to go through. But if I can save myself some hurt, some hard times from learning from another person's third person point of view, and I can gain that knowledge, it makes me better, or it makes my transition a little more seamless and a less harmful to me personally because I didn't have to go through it. I can definitely learn from their experience. Now, some things I'm just going to have to go through myself. And when I go through those, ups and downs or adverse situations, and I have those experiences, I too want to understand the lesson in those experiences and take the lesson with me, but as well understand why I got there, what was the hurt, so I don't repeat those same experiences again because I've learned the lesson.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so anybody coming from those situations, I think, a lot of guys that's being drafted now, a lot of guys that, are in entertainment, a lot of guys that are in institutions, meaning that's going to college, they're going to have these things because individuals going to feel like the separation is happening. And that's actually a grieving period for both individuals. One may be in a better position to get the information needed to help them grieve that situation and continue to grow from it. And the other may not be in that situation to understand that that's a grieving period, that person is growing and it's okay for them to grow. If I want to remain in that friendship, I must too grow with that individual, and I must grow on my own. I can't only grow just because of that individual. So individuals are going to be going through that all the time, because the name of the game is learn, unlearn, relearn. So we all are doing that and being a better version of ourselves each and every opportunity that we get, then we all going to become better individuals as we progress and evolve in this good world that we call life. You know what I mean? So with that in a nutshell, man, don't be afraid of change, embrace it. But also don't be afraid to put boundaries up for individuals that you may need to put boundaries up for, to allow yourself to grow. And sometimes that growth look like isolation. Don't stay in isolation forever, because you have to come out and continue to have experience so you continue to grow and show other people that it's okay to grow. So that's my little mental health, I guess, on self-awareness and self-growth, and being able to evolve as an individual. Again, that's our show. Thank you for tuning in. We appreciate you guys. Always, like we tell you, turn on the notification bell, hit the likes, share the video. Hopefully we putting out meaningful content that you can take things from it, hang your hat on it. And like always, man, we appreciate you guys. Stay blessed, and we'll see you on the next show.